most musicians that I know intend on using summer as the catch-up period. I know I treat this summer as just that. So there are many dangers that may prevent us from achieving that goal, whether we have a plan or we don't have a plan, especially if we don't have a plan on how to use this abundance of free time that suddenly we were given, which is what my next post on Substack and next video is going to be about. But as far as here and now is concerned, we may run through the repertoire, we may pick up a bunch of new pieces, and then September comes and we are just as we were, if not worse. So that gap between the effort and the progress has a reason, and it probably is not what you think. You can put 3 hours in a day and feel like you have moved the needle a little bit, and then wake up next morning and with the first rays of the morning sun, just like the morning dew, the progress evaporates. Often, very often, it happens due to what I mentioned in just the most recent video. When you are using the hammer to drill in thousands of screws, and taking that analogy from that video just one step further, and it still applies just as painfully, those screws simply are not going to be set in place securely. So there is a concept that I'm going to get into over the next handful of videos, and it will explain in great detail why trying harder backfires and what to do about it. But for now, let's consider the following. Trying harder, whatever that means for you, two broad camps: putting more time in, putting more effort in. But if in the end of the day, what you do is still hitting the screws with the hammer with more rigor, or playing through again and again instead of practicing, learning, or sitting down at the piano without giving yourself a clear task, clear one goal that you're going to improve in one specific set. And so therefore you have very little idea of whether you have progressed towards the completion of the goal or not. So all of those could be examples of doing something while trying harder. So trying harder is not going to make you play any better. There is a chance that trying harder is going to force you to stop playing at all. The players who have the biggest leaps are not the ones who practice more in the summer. Well, they are, but there is more to that. It's those who figure out what needs practicing, what exact skills require a leveling up. So if we consider, for those of us who are active students, if you consider that the school year is just like this main quest of your life right now, but that's a very linear quest. And do you have a teacher who gives you assignments and gives you feedback? And neither of those things that you can actually personally rely on. And I'm speaking on behalf of myself as a teacher and on behalf of myself as the long-time, still recovering student. So summer, unlike school year, on the other hand, is like an open world. Now, for those of us who are more aged or more mature, in some ways at least, the whole year is the open world as far as personal progress or personal self-improvement are concerned. So, back to the point of not relying too much on being spoon-fed what to do and how to do it. You have to develop this skill of this discernment of sorts, as well as you have to figure out the system for yourself of how to plan things, how to track things. And then, of course, we have to spend more time executing than planning and gathering all that knowledge. There are many studies out there that suggest, for those of us who are perfectionist types, many studies that suggest that an okay plan and then getting right into the action is far better than having a perfect plan. In the reality in which, in one case, you spend, for example, 1 day putting it together, and in the other, you have to spend 2 weeks in just preparations. Now, that will feel productive, but that will lead you nowhere. Okay, back to this discernment and figuring out. If you don't know where to start, what to improve this summer, now that you have a bit more time, that you can use your own way. If you have a bucket of things that collected things over the year, and the bucket has the name, which is when I have time for it, I would suggest now is the time to lean heavily into that bucket. For me, it's going to be a new standard piano and orchestral repertoire, which I almost don't have time to address during the school year. So, and by doing that, which I've started doing, will allow me to improve my sight reading skills, my technical skills, general learning, which is problem solving, and musicianship at the piano, as well as my skills in score reading, analysis, and conducting technique as far as orchestral world is concerned. So, kind of in a wrap-up closing, summer is an opportunity. Summer also is a test. I want you to leave with 3 things. And I'm not suggesting that you are in any way or form to rigidly follow those 3 things, because I know I won't do that. But reframing the Earl Nightingale's 30-day challenge from The Strangest Secret on Earth, and I'm turning it myself for like the 60-day period before August hits, because August is where the school starts. So it's going to be my own 60-day test / identity shift for myself. I'm going to suggest the following 3 things. Number 1 is reduce, don't expand. So focus in. What I mean, summer is not the season for 12 new pieces. Now, for those whose life and career is solely about performing and sharing that music with audiences, now is the time for those 12 and more pieces to learn. But back to us mere mortals. Depending on the size, duration of the piece, of course, 1 or 2, but deeply. Less is harder than more, and that's the whole point. It will be clear just around the corner. The clarity comes. My personal example to that is my personal agenda consists of 1 large, it's over 60-minute long piano piece, and hopefully up to 2 standard repertoire orchestral pieces that I'm hoping to have them ready as performance ready before September 1. None of those repertoire items relate that I'm going to be learning relate to what I have to be doing during the school year in my organizations. So I try to keep it clean and hopeful. Number 2, practice versus planning. They are not the same thing, and there's probably one easy way to distinguish one from another. So occasional playing is one thing, and I enjoy just reading through the music when that's the purpose, just reading through the music. There's no expectation to potentially even ever getting back to that music for a little while. But if that's all that we do, just play through, we're playing, we're not learning. which means we're not practicing. So deliberate practice is uncomfortable, and it also requires thinking, analyzing. And here is the easy way to distinguish one from another. Playing versus practicing. If it feels comfortable, then it's probably playing or performing. And we don't learn by performing. We learn how to perform by performing, but we don't learn how to play by performing. Okay, and lastly, 3. Before deciding what to practice, decide when, how long, and how you're going to track it. And the planning system comes before you just have this random set of ideas that you're going to tackle, but without actual clarity on how to do it. So this is particularly viable and important in this summer. So, which is exactly what the next video is going to be about. I will show you a system I'm going to put together in front of your eyes. I did put it together 2 years ago. I have never really used it to that extent, but as a personal challenge for 60 days, I will be using it for the next 60 days alongside with you maybe. And it's essentially a combination of a 12-week year system and certain elements of bullet journaling, minimal version of bullet journaling that takes as little time as possible to set up to reduce friction instead of adding yet another layer. So in closing, and I'm going to repeat this as I need to say it to myself more often as well, summer is an opportunity, but it's also a test. It's not a test of discipline, it's a test of identity. I remember posing similar questions that I'm about to tell you to my students 6 years ago in spring of 2020 when all of the schools stopped for reasons known. When there is no external pressure, no teacher waiting, no recital coming, who are you as a musician? Do you practice because you have to or because you're actually trying to become something? I leave that question hanging in your ears. Don't waste this. Good luck. So in the next video, the planning system, and in a couple of weeks, we are going into this framework that explains why effort and progress frequently disconnect in the first place. I will be heavily tapping into this reality transurfing I mentioned in the other video. And if you know Neville Goddard or the law of assumption, this will feel familiar, but it goes slightly deeper. As always, be playful and be curious. I will see you in the next one.